May 1945. Nazi Germany has fallen. The world erupts in cheers, celebrating the victory of freedom over tyranny. Parades honor the liberators who braved incredible odds to reach Berlin. They came from faraway lands across the sea. They fought for our freedom. The men of the Red Army, the men of the Wehrmacht, the men of the SS, all gone. The terrible nightmare of Hitler's rule was over. Finally, it was a bright new day for Germany. The war in Europe was over. God, how happy we are that the Germans are finally liberated. And yes, finally the nightmare of Hitler is over. There was only one problem. In the jubilation and celebration, something was lost sight of. Deep in the bombed-out ruins of Berlin and other German cities, something horrible was happening. Things that should never happen ever again. Welcome back to my channel. Today we will talk about a story that we don't hear much about anymore. The aftermath of the Second World War. The crimes that were committed by those who claimed to be liberators. We will see what really happened to the people of Germany after the war, and how many of them fell victim to the liberators. The year is 1945. The war is over. Millions of German civilians have been killed. People are hungry and exhausted. The bombs have left thousands of buildings in ruins. So when the first US, British and Soviet soldiers enter the country, the Germans see them as liberators. At least the food situation in the West is still better than in the East. There are still warehouses full of food supplies there. And the Americans certainly know how to distribute them. Look at these happy families receiving packages of food from US soldiers. Life under the Nazis was hard, especially for families with children. But now they are free, and hopefully things will get better. But then horror strikes. The liberating troops are raping German women. They enter houses and force women to submit to them. Men who resist are beaten and sometimes shot dead. A new nightmare begins for the German women. They are now at the mercy of foreign soldiers. This is what the Americans are like. What are the Brits and Soviets like? Let's start in the East. As soon as the Red Army takes a town, women disappear into the barracks of the Soviet soldiers. Those who have been raped once are humiliated and ashamed. But if they think they can hide from the Russians, they are wrong. They come back again and again. Sometimes they take the women down into the cellars with them and abuse them there. This is going on for weeks. Sometimes the women are taken outside and have to walk barefoot through the snow. There is nothing the German men can do to protect their women. The Red Army is too strong. Most have already fled the city or died in the war. A Russian officer decides to end the whole thing with a single blow. He goes into a bar and calls all women in the city to report to the barracks. All of them, young and old, are forced to march behind the soldiers. They are herded together like cattle. Then the rape begins. Some of the women pass out completely, lying in the mud, unable to defend themselves. When it's over, they leave them lying there. But the women lie so still that the Russians mistake them for being dead and leave them there. Houses are set on fire, barns are plundered and then set on fire too. It is complete chaos and madness. Thousands upon thousands of women are raped until their bodies can no longer withstand the abuse. Nobody knows exactly how many women are being raped by the Red Army. The numbers that are known are based on survivor accounts and are probably only a fraction of the actual number. Historians assume that in reality, up to 2 million women were sexually abused by the soldiers of the Red Army. But that's not all. After the women are raped, they are usually left alone in the street without any medical care. Nobody cares. The consequences are horrific. Many women fall ill with horrible diseases. Some go insane. Their only thought, their only desire, revenge. But that's not the only news from Germany. Also in the Western occupied zone, it is not uncommon for German women to line up for food rations. And then an American soldier whispers to them, "You will receive more food if you sleep with me." Women have no choice but to agree. If they refuse, they will not get enough food, not even for their children. Soon, a large part of the German population, especially women and children, are forced to live on this so-called survival prostitution. Anyone who can afford it tries to get his hands on cigarettes. That seems to be the main currency now. Cigarettes are exchanged for food, cigarettes for sex. An exchange that will haunt the people of Germany for years to come. What happens when German women are forced to sleep with soldiers in exchange for food? Well, that leads to children. Children who grow up knowing they are unwanted. Children who have no fathers, no past, no history. The Germans later called them bastard children. a derogatory term that means offspring of an animal. In fact, the term refers to children born out of rape. But these children are stigmatized, branded with shame. They are unwelcome in society. Families hide their existence, erase them from diaries, pretend they don't exist. German society does not want to acknowledge them. That's not the only bad news coming from the occupied territories. We also learn about resistance fighters who have been imprisoned by the Allies for opposing the Nazi regime. They are locked up for years and not allowed to return home. Or former Nazi soldiers who are supposed to be reintegrated into civilian life. But instead they are imprisoned for crimes against humanity. And then there are the political prisoners who are arrested by the Allies simply because they are suspected of Nazi membership. They are tortured and mistreated until they confess to crimes they did not commit. But it's not just people who suffer under the occupation. The animals also suffer. Who has no other goal than killing animals? And yet the Germans keep hope alive and dream of the day when peace will finally return to their country. Now let's turn to the French occupation zone. Here too, there are disturbing reports from several towns. The French soldiers are accused of having forced women into prostitution. The British zone is quieter. The soldiers here seem to be more disciplined. But then there's the incident in Hamburg where a group of British officers forces a 14-year-old girl into prostitution. But the British aren't done yet. On June 1945, they took 7 German girls to an abandoned farmhouse. Here they beat the girls and forced them to dig their own graves. Then they murdered them. 2 Danish sisters came to Hamburg to work. The British soldiers invite them to a party, drug them, and then take them to a nearby farm. Here they are abused and tortured for 8 hours. Later, one of the sisters learns that she is pregnant with twins. She doesn't want to tell anyone about the attack. So she hides the pregnancy and gives birth secretly. A few months later, a neighbor discovers the skeletons of the twins in the girl's room. Those were the crimes of the occupiers. But why do we hardly ever hear about them today? Because everyone wants to see the victorious Allies as heroes. They risked their lives to liberate us from Hitler's tyranny. Surely they would never commit crimes against the very people they came to help. But they did, and so we must remember the victims. This is my channel. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and leave a comment below. See you next time.